Welcome to the Warrior Razor podcast. We're your hosts, Angela
and Kerry.
We all need help and support to stay focused and challenged to courageously pursue the life God has called us to live. What we do matters.
Here on the Warrior Razor podcast, we seek Jesus first and use the skills, talents, and passions He's given us second.
Good morning, warriors. Time to start your day. Keep your head up, marching on. Don't let nothing stand in your way. Don't let nobody tear you down. You got to proudly wear your crown. 'Cause you're a warrior.
Well, welcome everyone. We are excited to have you listening to our show today. We unfortunately don't have a guest, and it's not for trying. It's just that no one could schedule with us this month, and that's okay, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes that happens.
That's right. That's right. So we thought we didn't want to skip because we love this rhythm of getting to talk with guests or getting to share at least once a month here on the podcast. So we thought we're just going to jump on here, talk about, as how the year has been and what we've enjoyed from that. And then, we'll just kind of summarize things, if you will, because we've had so many good guests, right?
Yeah, we really have. I'm thinking of the powerhouses of women that we have had. And here's what's really cool is that they might not be known to the whole world, but they are doing amazing things for Jesus. And I wanted just thank you, Kerry, for bringing some of the people on that you know and have relationship with. And
absolutely,
it's been an honor for me to get some of the people that have just been instrumental in my life to come on the show. And I'm looking forward to the next year and who we'll have on as well. And we've got one more guest scheduled to wrap up our current season of Small Beginnings. And I'm excited to have, Kathy Cairo. She'll be coming on for our next month's podcast. But let's get to just chatting here. You and I can talk shop all day long.
all day long. But I love what you just said there about these women and their knownness or lack of, if you want to say that. But I love that lack of knownness does not negate anything done for the kingdom, right?
Yeah.
So there's this idea of like, these women don't have huge platforms, but they are known and loved by the people around them just because of their character and their love for Jesus and the really cool things that they're doing. And some have larger platforms than others, but it's the people that they're just daily grinding out, got that grit to impact the people that God has placed in front of them. And they're saying yes to it all the time. And that just empowers me so much and makes me so proud to be, to know those women and to just have them say yes to coming on our, little show here. And I don't know, it's just neat to think that through and to
you're talking about this and this we organically have gotten on this train here, but I was recently listening to a book. Kerry and I both are big consumers of books, both written and audio. But I'm listening to a book right now on Revelation, and it's called Revelation Decoded. And in this chapter that we're on, he talks about how when we get to heaven and when Jesus talks about the rewards and the crowns and all of the things, those that we think here on earth that we're the big lights and the big names and the big people, they may not be the ones that are getting the biggest heavenly reward. And
that's true.
There was something just comforting, not like, aha, they don't get it, or it wasn't like a malicious feeling that I had. I don't know, maybe it was, but also like God honors the small behind the scenes stuff. And it's the matter of the heart that he really cares most about. And what we do with, whether you're a teacher, whether you're, you are in ministry with a microphone, or whether, you're caring for an elderly parent, or the stuff that you are putting your hands to do, if you're doing it all for the glory of God. And then you're also taking the platform, which we've talked about this on the show, is the ground that you are standing on, the place that God has put you in. If you are using that platform to help seek and save the lost and using it ultimately for his glory, how we do it, the way and the how, the methods, all of that will be different and unique for each one of us. But the common denominator for each one of us as believers or followers in Christ is that that's our great commission to help seek and save the lost.
That's right.
So I listened to that and I was just kind of like reassured that, you know what, Lord, let me just making sure. Does that make sense? Let me make sure that everything I'm doing is unto you with a heart that is wanting to be in tandem with your will. So
yes, love that. Let me throw in another resource that both of you and I have read or are reading. This is actually a book we're reading for our Warrior Women tribe. Called Dream Big by Bob Goff.
Love us some Goff.
And I just texted Angela yesterday and I was like, oh my goodness, the chapter called Comparison is a Punk, which I love. I love
First
that
of
title.
all, he's hilarious. I love it.
He is such a good chapter because there is this tendency in all of us to just, we want to, especially maybe the big dreamers or the ones that are actually trying to say yes to the big dreams God has put in their heart. We have a tendency before we even get started to just constantly compare and look at what everybody else is doing. And it's okay to compare in like, okay, I want to use what they did and I don't want to do that part, but I might do this. That's okay. That's part of growing and maybe even formulating your dream. But when you're like, ugh, I'm not like them, I'll never be like them. Satan tries to deceive us in our comparison. And man, comparison is a punk.
It really is.
When
Kills
we
the
let
calling.
that happen. When we let that happen. So yeah, we just can't do that. And we can't allow that to be part of our thinking, which takes me to one of my favorite episodes. Actually, was this an interview or were you and I just talking about it? Oh, geez. Humble yourself, Kerry. Maybe it was you and I, maybe, I don't know. But we talked about the need for having, people around you.
Yeah. Our tribe.
Who's
in your tribe?
Yep. Who's in your tribe? Who gets to influence you? Who gets to speak into your life? Who do you actually, rather than just chew on it and spit it out kind of thing, who do you chew and swallow and delight in and digest the things that they tell you?
Who are those deep wells that you've got allowing to just fill you up? And nobody's ever 100% perfect, but we have to be trying to find those women or those people in our lives that are going to be, like the word says, iron sharpening our iron. But here's the thing, in that sharpening, the friction, there's some ouchiness that can happen and can occur. But I don't want to stay where I am. I don't want to look back at 5 months from today and be like, man, I had no growth. Like I want to be growing. And sometimes growing is the change is challenging and can be uncomfortable. I used to have hermit crabs. Did you ever do hermit crabs growing up?
I never did. My niece and nephew begged for them one year when I was on vacation with our families were together. I do remember that, but I never had any.
Maybe some like girls club organization I was a part of. Excuse me. We did them. And I remember that as the hermit crab grows, you have to give it a new shell because it will outgrow the shell. Right. And I don't even know where this random analogy has come from in my mind, the recesses of my mind, but this is how it is, right? Carrie's just like,
this is how our conversations go, people. Welcome.
But I feel like sometimes, like when he expands our territory, when he's giving us more to be responsible for and to steward, like there's some ouchiness that comes, like discomfort, some growing pains, like you're feeling like I am cramped. But in order to move out, you got to plop off that old shell to get into the new thing that he's calling you to. So we're just little hermit crabs over here twiddling around. True story. I lost my hermit crab. Couldn't find it in my room for like months. And that sucker survived.
I was just going to ask, you found it alive?
We found it alive.
Oh, that's
my poor parents.
Oh my gosh. I love that.
So I don't know. I feel like that's kind of been the thread of one of our theme this year in terms of the small beginnings, and the Lord rejoices. He delights when we take what he's equipped us with and we do the thing that he's asking us to do, and we do it even when we don't know the full scope of it, but we just take that next step of obedience and we're like, okay, Lord, this is weird. This is uncomfortable. I don't know what the end will look like, but I'm just going to take that next step of faith. And I just have to also trust that you'll redirect me if I take a little misstep too.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely. That I think with our guests, especially, that's been something that's kind of been at the heart of many of the messages, because they've talked about their small beginnings and the good, bad, and the ugly along the way. But
Yeah.
because they've said yes to coming on the show and sharing their testimony, I'm then like inspired, because I'm like, okay, you took that small step and God was faithful to you.
Yeah.
I can take that small step because your testimony is encouraging me to remember that God will be faithful to me.
Yeah.
And
I
just
think
to hear other
Val,
people's stories.
even
Yeah.
like Val's story where she talked about like the mountain, and like that mountain, I'm not done yet and I can climb that mountain. And like
Yeah.
almost every speaker that we've had,
Yeah.
it's just been like, okay, wow.
Yeah.
Like Heidi and her conversation with us, talking about the friend situation and
Yeah.
just how sometimes not every, and you were talking about this earlier about the tribe, like not
Yeah.
everybody is there for the season that you're
Yep.
in.
Yep.
And I think as women too, we have to be okay with the change and knowing that I served a purpose for their life, they served a purpose for mine, and it might have been a transient situation, but it's okay
Yep.
that God is moving me onto something different. I don't know. You have more thoughts on that?
No, absolutely. I definitely think that there's a, a place in our hearts where we want to like, keep things all the same. We don't necessarily love change. Though I personally, when I take those exam or those like tests where it's like, do you like change or do you not? I'm like, oh, the change. But
Yeah.
I still have moments where, I do want things to remain the same, because,
Yeah.
even though I don't mind change, it's work and
Yeah.
I don't always love work. Right. So, but yeah, we need to be able to enjoy and know the good of what it was, but be able to let it go in a grace filled and a grace filled way, so that
Man, that's
yeah, it
speaking to me
doesn't
on so many
get
levels
to
because
us.
I just turned 43 yesterday at the time of this recording.
Happy
And I'm like,
birthday.
the grace to let go
Oh,
of that idea of what even my body will once upon a time look like. I was going back through photos with the kids and they're like, Mom, look, you I was like, shush, don't
yeah.
you say a word.
You don't have to you don't have to
She
speak right now.
gone. That lady that you see in these photos, she gone. But like,
Oh,
Lord, thank you for that body that served me well.
that's
And
right.
thank you for this body that
Yep.
you've given me right now in this season. It's not as beautiful and all kept together as it once was. Now, granted, there's the different things I could be doing, but but also like you've given me this body, and I know
Yeah.
that I need to take care of it so I can continue to do the work that you're going to call me to in the future.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's like you said, that letting things go and stepping into the newness, like
Let it
that's speaking to me
go.
on lots of levels.
Oh man, gotta let things go for sure. I feel
Yeah,
like there's so much to letting go of, like, fears, and letting go of actual failures, and letting go of
yeah,
people, and letting go of pride, and letting go. There's so much letting go
and
when you are pursuing
expectations.
your dreams.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
so I think like what can we talk about for the listener, to the viewer that's like, okay, because we, even with like the Warrior Women Tribe, for those of you that don't know what that is, we
Mhm.
take a group, a cohort, 2 years now. We've done it for just an entire year. Going forward in January, we're going to be starting 2 different cohorts. We'll have one starting in January, and the second one we're going to take a little break and then start back up in June. Am I right? June. And then we'll take it through the end of the year.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm
Yep.
right. Okay. And then we meet twice a month, and then we have retreats for both of these cohorts. But
Yep.
um even starting that, even with these women, it's like we're coming alongside women that are at different levels of carrying a dream. And you and I, we're not like have arrived any sort of some way. And I
No.
think what you and I really wanted to focus on was not that we're the experts,
Right.
we have all the answers, but we're teammates coming
That's right.
alongside you in this journey to
Yes.
help you carry the calling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I often describe myself as a cheerleader. And even, I mean, it's funny if I think back on where God has brought me as a teacher, and then as a
Yeah.
supervisor for teachers, and then into full-time ministry, and now even more leadership in full-time ministry, and then this business that he's put on our heart and on our minds.
Yeah.
It's everything has been cheering someone on, not me knowing necessarily any of the specifics, some
Yeah.
things I might know some, but really it's like looking at someone and saying, you can do it.
Yeah.
And he's just put that inside of me. And that's what we do for our cohorts. And that's what we do for the people around us. And it's good to know that some people might say, oh, I hate being, a jack of all trades, master of none, right? That phrase that people use.
I definitely feel like I resonate with that a lot.
Sometimes I think that, but usually I think that's my superpower. Like,
Correct.
I think that is where I'm supposed to be, because I just get to look at everybody around me and encourage them and pray for them and help them seek the things they're looking for or pursuing or wanting to try, wanting to do. And that's really fun for me. I don't know that it's necessarily a bad thing that I'm not
I would
some
agree.
expert at something,
But here, I didn't come to that easily, because I feel like only within the last probably decade of my life have I really been like, oh wait, this is not a all bad thing. Like, I like to craft. I like to do things that are creative, but also I'm very task oriented and business oriented sometimes too. But I love people.
Brained.
Yeah. Science. So lots of science.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, Lord, I just want to use this as a superpower, like you said, just to ultimately advance your kingdom and also like have fun along the way too. Like, I don't know if crafting is advancing Jesus's kingdom, but I know that he's gifted me with that. And so I love to give gifts. And so I like to use that to love on others. And so if that's being Jesus in that way, then I'm going to do it. Yeah. And I didn't come, like I said, I didn't come to that easily. I would always kind of look on that begrudgingly, like, man, why couldn't I have just been like that thing and just really laser focused my career on that one thing. But now look, here we are coming alongside women who are trying to get laser focused in their calling, and we're working to encourage, equip, and empower them to fulfill their calling. So
That's right. Yeah. So I guess shameless plug for that cohort coming up. If you're interested, we're taking applications, and we would love to invite you into that space and be your biggest cheerleaders.
Hey, we're a lot of fun too. We do have lots of fun. We have lots of laughs, and we will pray for you. We do commit to that as well. So you'll get to have conversations with us on a personal level. If you're in Ohio, you have to come for a retreat. So that's the only caveat about the participations. You have to be able to be in person for that. But I think I'm excited for this new year. I'm excited for this new season. The world needs strong women that know who Jesus is and know who and what their identity is in him. Because I mean, just take 1 minute looking at your social media feed, the news, the world, everything. It's just when everybody else around you is in chaos, we have to keep our eye on the where our help comes from, who our anchor is. And that's why we need strong women who are doing strong things for the kingdom.
Yep. Yeah. And that anchor and that who we just, courageously and without, any kind of shame or, blah, 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 is through Jesus, and there are lots of groups that, and communities that you might have around you that encourage you in many ways. And, those are good. But we definitely are just unapologetically, if you're not doing it through the power of Jesus in your life, then why? And so we unapologetically say that, and we want to help people pursue that.
And you don't have to come like super sister Christian, whatever. You can, we'll take
everybody's on a journey.
Yep.
Everybody's on a path. Everybody's on a journey. So we'll cheerlead wherever that starting point is or that place is for you. Yep.
Just know that you're going to get some Jesus and some prayer, and you're going to be reading some stuff. So, all right, that's good with the plug on the cohort. I'm excited for it, but I think it shows our passion, and that in talking about the small beginnings, this was our small beginning 2 years ago where we stepped out in faith. We're like, hey, but even like, let's talk about how that organically even happened. Cause I don't know if all the listeners and everybody has heard this. I feel like our cohorts they know the journey, but how we even got to this point on 2 microphones on a screen is an interesting story in and of itself. So I'll let you kickstart it.
It really is. So when you and I first met, we were both questioning not what God not that God called us, but what exactly that looked like and where that could go. And so we met each other. I was doing a podcast. I was in full-time ministry and also doing my own podcast. You were still writing Fruitful and kind of trying to figure out, where are you going to try and get it published the traditional way? Are you going to try and do self-publishing, all that stuff? And we were apprenticing under someone that was already doing some of the things we thought that we might want to do or that God was asking us to do. And that ended, and we were like, no, it will not end.
Can I tell the story about when we first met in person?
Go for it.
I think we talked about this on the podcast too, but I'm 5'7", so I'm not a small person by any means. I played collegiate basketball, so I had to be able to hold my own. So on the cameras where Kerry and I first met on Zoom with this like group of other women who were apprentices during that season. And I just remembered it's kind of a neat thing when a personality can really transcend a screen. And I thought, oh my gosh, I think she's fun. I would consider her maybe somebody that I would want to get to know. Because how about you guys know that friending as an adult is legit an Olympian sport?
It's like, it's the worst.
It is the worst.
So hard.
So hard. Like grown up friends. Ew. Like I struggle with the fact of like, oh wait, you don't want to like go all in, like deep dive, like let's be besties right at first. And then I like have to pull back and I'm like, wait, I exposed way too much of myself in this situation. Like you didn't go there with me. So now I'm feeling kind of like hung out here. And then it's like, I don't know. I think you're kind of a better balance of that where you're just like, well, I'm going to friend date you a little bit before you know all my stuff. Partly because
I'm an in-betweener.
You've been in ministry for a really long time, like in terms of vocational.
So
you've had to like really put wise boundaries in that realm.
It's true.
Anyway, but I was just like, I think she looks fun. She looks like somebody I would want to meet. So I think I chatted with you on the Zoom and I said, hey, let's schedule something. And so sure enough, we go to meet and you get there first because I'm like a 4-minute late person.
I'm a 10-minute early person.
You're 10-minute early.
Which is another reason why we work.
Yes. I like to say 4 minutes. Like today for this call, I was quite late, but I did let you know a heads up. But so we get there and Carrie's sitting and I said to myself, okay, oh, that's her. I recognize her. And she stands up and I said to myself, don't say how tall she is. Don't say how tall she is. How tall are you?
I'm 6'2".
6'2". I mean, and you played collegiate sports too. You
volleyball.
Were volleyball.
Yep.
So I was like, don't ask her if she played sports because that's like
everybody. Yep.
He was like, oh, you're really tall. I was like, really? Thank you.
Didn't notice.
So I think I did a good job of like self-editing because sometimes I don't.
You did a great job. Yes.
So we sat there. We really chatted it up for a couple hours, just getting to know each other, and then later in the season, we decided to have a writers thing. What do we call it? A retreat, writers retreat with the woman we were interning with. And then it ended up only being Kerry and myself that could come. And it's actually at the same home that we host now the retreats at. But tell about when we were sitting there, what the Lord just kind of, I think it was like a seed he planted in your heart, like a small beginning.
He did. I feel like as we were working on that stuff, I was personally working on writing for an Advent, something that I wanted to do with this Advent stuff. And I'm writing and writing, and I'm like, man, in my heart, I'm just thinking, I would rather just tell someone about this, right? I would rather just talk about this than write it out. And not because I don't like the writing process. I actually really enjoy the writing process. I was an English teacher before coming into ministry. So I love writing. I love reading good writing. And I just kept thinking, I don't know if this writing piece, even so the woman we apprenticed under is also a speaker, right? So she speaks in pretty large crowds. And so I thought, or speaking it per se, I'm more of like a casual, let's just like do something over coffee conversation type of person. But how can that be like, that's thing. Not ministry, right? Like that's life. That's doing life. That's not ministry. And so I think at that point is when the seed was planted for me to be like, okay, I think God is asking me to switch gears here and do something a little different.
Yeah.
And then by the end, I did shock everyone and was like, yeah, I'm not going to write. I'm not going to speak. I'm going to do this instead. And it's interesting too, because this that I wanted to do, God also was asking me currently to lay down at that time. So I knew he wanted me not to write and not to speak from a stage, but I also knew he wanted me to the podcast that I was doing and felt very called to. He was saying, I need you to lay it down for a little bit. And so I just tried to obey that. And then lo and behold, you come along and you're like, hey, remember that podcast you helped me make? Do you want to be on it with me? Like a co-host thing? And I'm like, okay, that's what he was doing.
Yeah, because it's hard to carry the weight alone. It really is when you're doing the thing alone for a while, that you do get exhausted.
Yeah.
And I feel like the Lord was just kind of putting you in my life, me in your life, and orchestrating this thing that we're doing now. But even I'm going to take it back a step. When we were at the retreat, Carrie sits back in her chair, folds her arms, looks over her shoulder. She's like, I got plans. I got plans for this place. And I said, oh, you do you? She's
what's really funny about that is that I'm bold like that in my brain a lot, but it doesn't usually come out of my mouth. And I couldn't stop it from coming out of my mouth.
I haven't heard this part.
Could not stop it from coming out of my mouth. It was just like the Holy Spirit was like, what? And and then in my head, after I said it, I was like, I don't know if we're friends enough for me to say that out loud. I was like, well, either we're gonna be friends and we're moving forward with this, or this is done.
Well, and I think I just was like taking it all in, and I'm like, okay, all right, because I'm not afraid of a big dream or a big ask. I'm kind of gotten really bold in my asks too. I read a book by Mark Batterson. You've read this one too, I think, the Circle Maker, where it really kind of affected my prayer life, where I'm not going to just like ask like, thank you for this day and bless this, that, and the other. Like, no, let's get very intentional, very specific in what we're coming to the throne room of grace for and with.
Yeah. And he'll change our hearts and minds if that's not supposed to be it.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. So the seed was planted, and then it kind of just like sat there, and I don't know if it was dormant. It was just kind of like, it was there because I also was trying to get the book across the finish line. Yes. But then once that happened, and as an aside for me, like I am doing the writing and the speaking thing. So that's kind of like the Lord made that crystal clear for me. Like, no, this is the lane, but it's not going to look anything like what this woman did. You're going to be very much your DNA, your fingerprint, because I have called you by name. I have redeemed you. And so that was something that the Lord had to take me through, because going way back to the beginning of this conversation today about that whole comparison and how comparison is a punk. It's like, when you model somebody in an internship or an apprenticeship, you're like, okay, I'm here because I want to have something that looks similar to what you're doing.
Right.
And I'm just going to share this. Her name's Melissa Spolstra. We love her. Hopefully someday she'll be on the show. I'm speaking faith into this. That's right. I remember talking to somebody and they're like, oh, you want to be a Melissa? And it hit me like right between the eyes. And I was just like, ouch. No, I don't want to be a Melissa, but I want to be me, but I don't have a platform like she does. I don't have any of the followers that she does. And it was just almost like it disqualified my dream in that moment. The weight of someone's words. And even though she had no intention of doing that with what she was saying, but the enemy will allow stuff like that to happen, to like implant a seed of doubt and manipulate a truth. Cause that's what he's always done since the beginning of time. He's not original.
Nope.
Yeah. Nope. Not original in his tactic.
No.
So, I mean, I really kind of labored over that. Well, how can I do this thing that I feel I've been called to when I don't have the means or the wherewithal to do that? And so I think the tribe and the ministry that day when we were on our writers retreat, when you said, I've got plans for this place, I think it kind of went dormant for a minute because I had to see the book across the finish line. I had to kind of discover my true calling and what the Lord had uniquely called me to be as Angela. Like, you know, I've called you Angela.
Yep.
And so it was the beginning of the year, and I do this thing where I'm a journaler. You are too. And Christy McClellan, who we love, we both read her stuff. We've actually met her in person.
Yeah, she's a doll.
And she is like super friendly, like
so kind, so sweet, so open, and just so smart. And like, she's just awesome. Yeah.
She's a powerhouse. Very, very much so. But she talked about in one of her podcasts, I think that she was doing, how she does a time of remembrance. So she'll take the last few days of the year and look over her journal or journals, however many she's written in for the entire year. And she'll look at the theme of that as her book of remembrance. And I thought, that's a great thing. I always write, but I don't always take designated time to review the words that I've written. Because honestly, don't you have a friend that you're like, burn my journals when I die?
Yes, I have a friend. Her job when I die is to get all my journals and burn them before anybody else gets their hands on them.
Me, I'm like, she gone, she dead. I don't care. Read my words, see all the nasty things I said about you and how the Lord had to like change my heart and process all this stuff because I'm such a verbal processor. Like, you can read all the things I thought about you when I'm gone. I'll be gone and I won't care.
That's true. That's very true.
So if you're in the Kerry camp where you're like, absolutely nobody can read these words, or you're like me, like, I don't care, whatever. Like, sometimes I will like kind of like come back and like write a nice thing because I'm like, well, maybe somebody will read this.
Listen, that's the thing. What if you forget to write the nice thing down and then
I mean, I really have no shame. You know me, I have no shame. It's like, I'm out there. Like I said, I go deep real fast. So, she said this thing where she reviews them and she kind of comes up with this like idea of what the theme for the year was. And I thought that's a really good idea. And so I did something similar and I thought, okay, let me go back and look over the course of this time with the Lord over the year. And then in that season, it was like a 3-day time where I reviewed and just kind of back over and it was nice. It was nice to remember and see the goodness of God in his hand on my life over things that I was like, this is the worst thing ever. And I'm like, oh, well, that's how he solved it. Okay. That's not that big of a deal. But going forward, I'm like, what do I want this next year to look like? So I reached back out to Kerry. I mean, it was probably every bit of like 5 months, maybe by the time that you had first said those words in boldness, thinking like, oh crap, did I just overstep?
Wasn't quite sure.
Yeah. So then I went back to her and I said, hey, you remember that thing that you said that you maybe wanted to do? Like, are you serious? Like, let's do this. And so, that was the birth of the Warrior Raiser, the Warrior Women Tribe, the podcast. And, here we are now. Like, it's still in its infancy, and that's okay. Because I think the Lord, again, he rejoices to see the work begin.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. It's so good. Fun. It's fun to think back. That was fun. I liked that trail down memory lane.
Yeah. So burn your journals. Don't tell people they're tall when you first meet them. What else? Do the hard
boldly
thing.
Say the things that are in your head because you never know what might happen.
Well, also like say maybe you've got this thing that you're like, shoot, should I say this? But like the person on the other end of that conversation is thinking the same thing, or they just don't have words to put to it, or something's percolating in them. They just don't even recognize it yet.
Yeah, that's very true. It's very true. And that's, and those are the things that, like I remember in that moment thinking, oh crap, we could be done. This could be the end of our relationship. Or like, who am I? I did not put any blood, sweat, and tears or equity into this beautiful home. Who am I to say I've got plans for it? But when I said it, and again, I count my words.
Yeah.
The older I get, the little more assertive I get, but
there's something cool about that too.
Yeah. But when that thought and the fact that it came out of my mouth was definitely of God, because, I just knew it wasn't me. And that's when, not to be like, oh, God's going to do all these things, not to be arrogant about it, but to say, oh, wow, okay, God is doing something.
Yeah.
It's okay. I can like follow his lead in that. So yeah.
And here's the other thing within you, God was already preparing your heart to step out in boldness. Somebody had spoken over you. I think it was actually Katie Cole, who's a well-known author and writer. And she had told you very specifically, and I don't want to mess up her words, but in short, that you have things to say.
She did. That was, man, gosh, I was on this retreat with other female leaders, and it was a 2-year kind of journey with this group of women. And we got a one-on-one kind of session with Katie, and her plans were not what happened that day. She came in and God just prophetically used her for each and every woman in that room. It was so cool to be part of. And yeah, she looked at me, and we were talking about assertiveness, and we were talking about, for many reasons why we don't say or do say certain things. And she just really spoke into me and said, you have things to say and you hold them back, and God's going to be asking you to stop holding them back.
Wow.
And she says, and the fact that you've held them back, I don't know if that's right or wrong. Maybe it was right. Maybe that's okay. She's like, but I have this, God's telling me that there's going to be some things coming that you need to use your voice, because he needs your voice and your sphere of influence in what you're doing. And
yeah, amen.
At first I was like, what? I don't know. I mean, I know I need to be more assertive. Like that's good.
Yeah,
I love that.
It tracked for you.
It did. And then it really tracked, as just things started happening.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, wow.
And that example with you and me was just one thing that has come
really
out from that season. And there's probably still more to come. But
yeah,
again,
so.
Here's the other cool thing about that. And we'll end with this conversation. Katie was just a little bit of an instrument in that season for you to just encourage you in that moment to help you move forward in the directive that God was calling you to.
He really did.
And I think that as women in the faith, women who have a sphere of influence, sometimes God is calling us to be a voice of encouragement for somebody else.
Yes.
So we don't always want to show up. We don't always want to come on and do the thing and be available, but sometimes it's not for us.
Yes.
Sometimes our very presence, the words, our experience, the testimony of our lives is not for us anymore. It's for somebody else to help plant a seed in another soul.
Yep.
And who knows who the next person to come along and water it. But what the word says is that whether you plant or water, Jesus will always bring in the increase, bring in the harvest. And so I'm excited to see what the boldness of obedience will look like for just this ministry, for hearing the stories of the women that will come on the show, what next year will look like. I'm excited. And we haven't come up with a theme yet. So if you're a listener,
we gotta pray about that.
Yeah, we're gonna pray about it. But if you got ideas as a listener or someone that watches us and you're like, hey, I want to learn about this, or maybe you guys have insight to weigh into this, like, hey, share it on the show.
Know. Yep.
Yeah, let us know. Let us know. Well, any last thoughts, Kerry?
No, but now you've got me thinking about next year, and it's really exciting. I wasn't letting my brain go there yet. That's usually what I do on winter break. When my boys are on winter break, I take some days off work and we reflect as a family. We make goals as a family. But now my brain's going there. Thanks a lot. No.
Just getting an early start, because you know me, I'm 4 minutes late for everything. So I gotta start.
You gotta have the early start.
Well, on that note, thank you for all of our listeners. Thank you for everybody that's been here with us. We're excited for one more interview this year, this calendar year. And then we're excited for what the Lord will reveal for next year. But for all of our fellow warrior raisers, aim your arrows well.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed our conversation, please go ahead and like and share it. You can also find us on www.warriorraiser.com.